Dr. Craig, we want to discuss some of the recent debates that you've had. And in this debate with Dr. Stenger that we just did a podcast on, you mentioned the ontological argument, that you used that argument. And we have podcasts on the ontological argument. We have your written material. So if you're not familiar with it, please go and peruse the resources at reasonablefaith.org and listen to some of the podcasts on it as well. But I'm curious, reflecting back on that debate, how he responded to the ontological argument.
This was the first time I've ever put forward the ontological argument in a debate situation, and he, as a non-philosopher, was rather flummoxed by the whole thing. He really didn't know what to respond, and so all he said was that if the ontological argument were sound, then you could argue that there must be a maximally great pizza, and that because a pizza that is maximally great would have to exist. Therefore, if a maximally great pizza is possible, therefore there is a maximally great pizza. And as I pointed out, that's really not a very good parody of the argument.
The pizza I had last night was not maximally great, by the way. Yeah.
Well, I don't think there is such a thing as a maximally great pizza. It's not even a coherent idea. Think about it, Kevin. A pizza is something that can be eaten and digested. And therefore, it cannot be metaphysically necessary. The idea of a metaphysically necessary pizza is just a logically incoherent idea.
Isn't this an old response? What was it, the maximally great island?
Sure, that's exactly right. This is an attempt, you try to parody the argument by saying that if it is sound, then it would lead to absurd conclusions like there is a maximally great island.
Coconut trees and beautiful beaches and things like
exactly. that. Exactly. And in this case, a maximally great pizza, whatever that might be. And the problem with the attempts to parody the argument is that the thing that is being used usually turns out to be plainly logically incoherent. There just isn't such a thing, or cannot be such a thing, rather, as a maximally great pizza, because a pizza cannot be a necessary being. It's something that can be eaten. And therefore, anything that is a pizza is not, by concept, maximally great. Similarly, with an island cannot be maximally great because there aren't really any objective great-making properties of islands. What you might think is a great island would be one that's loaded with the top resort hotels and lots of things to do. But for me, maybe a maximally great island would be one that is a desert island where I can be alone and secluded from civilization. So that what makes for a great island is very subjective and dependent upon a person's personal interests and tastes. So these attempts to parody the argument usually fail, obviously, because the thing that they're positing as maximally great isn't something that's capable of being maximally great.
And didn't Anselm respond to that by saying, for one thing, you're describing something that's limited and finite, like an island, and something that was composed. And an island would always be limited, finite.
Yes, again, anything that would be metaphysically necessary just could not be what we ordinarily mean by an island. A metaphysically necessary being would have to be able to exist, for example, in a universe that was composed of a single singularity. And anything that could exist in such a state just would not be what we normally mean by an island, which is a piece of land surrounded by water. So these turn out really to be quite logically incoherent ideas that couldn't possibly exist.
Is this how you responded to Dr. Stenger?
Yeah, what I said was a pizza can be eaten and therefore can fail to exist, and therefore it can't be metaphysically necessary.
But this pizza can't be eaten. Then it's not a pizza.
Right. You sound like Louis Wolpert in my debate
did.
with him about the invisible, intangible, changeless, immutable computer, which is just, again, either God under another semantic label or an incoherent notion.
A rose by any other name would smell as sweet.
Yeah.